Hello, thank you for having me today. I have a statement on food scarcity and homelessness in graduate students. I am a second year lighting MFA student in the School of Theater and Dance. In August of 2020, 2 weeks before the start of the fall semester, my roommate, an international student, texted me saying that she would not be returning to school in fear of traveling the country during a pandemic. She was then denied her assistantship for not doing so. I had to find a replacement, but more and more students were choosing to stay safe and healthy in their homes. This was not an option for me, so I had to find a roommate, anyone if I were to pay my rent. My stipend before taxes is $10.60, but after taxes and other fees, I get $933.20 deposited to my account. A breakdown of my monthly expenses is rent, $850, bills, $270, transportation, $30, groceries, $100. I needed $1,250 to survive, and I was handed a misery of a stipend, thoughts and prayers, and lots of "I'm sorry, that must be rough." It was rough. My love for studying here at ISU, my value for education, was a burden. The chains of capitalism laid heavy on my body, and I felt its effects quickly. I was desperate for help. After 2 weeks of worrying relentlessly, I found a roommate. He was a 40-year-old man doing his rotations at a local hospital here in Bloomington. He was friendly, and he would pay rent and bills up front. And I said yes and helped him move in. We were getting along until one day, after telling him about an injury I had on my knee, he asked if he could help. He insisted on looking and touching and fixing my injury. Every day for a month, I barricaded my bedroom door before going to bed. Every day for a month, I learned which floorboards creaked the loudest, and I felt trapped in my own home because a stranger violated my boundaries, and I let it happen because I did not want to be homeless. I needed a roommate. I needed to pay my rent. So after this situation and another failed roommate attempt, I had no more options but to live alone. For 2 months, I ate one meal a day, went to the food pantry every week, and was fed by other graduate students suffering from the same anxiety and uncertainty for their next meal. Perhaps my story made you uncomfortable, but this uncomfortability is not enough. My story could have been prevented if I had made enough money to just get by for a couple of months. As a student, my focus should be on my studies, not survival. I should not have to deal with school, work, a global pandemic, food scarcity, and nearness of homelessness. My suffering, my assault, and my empty stomach is still not enough for you to see graduate students as more than just laborers, but full-fledged and accomplished workers with passion and rigor for their career and education, and it is time we get paid that way. It is inhumane and disrespectful to the dignity of the human person to be treated as cheap labor. This further proves that ISU and other higher education institutions are interested in upholding profit in business. This is an academic institution. Your priority should be students. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ashley. Next, we have Heather O'Leary. Heather, you can proceed with your comments.
Hello, my name is Heather O'Leary, and I am a graduate teaching assistant and member of the Graduate Workers Union. Just as a note, I've been having trouble with my internet lately, so I apologize if I freeze partway through this statement. On Thursday, January 14th, the union delivered a stern message to university negotiators about the stagnant state of bargaining. I will read that message to you now. We in the ISU Graduate Workers Union have talked about the state of bargaining extensively among ourselves and what revisions or counter proposals we might make to respond to the university. However, ISU's proposals at this point are essentially no offers at all. Status quo wrapped up like something new. Graduate teaching assistants did not volunteer many long and stressful hours forming a union, preparing and engaging in good faith negotiations in order to merely approve changes or policies that the university has already made. Offering previously announced changes or policies is not negotiating at all. We do not believe that we are making progress or that ISU respects our time or the urgency of our situation. Since we began negotiations on October 31st, 2019, ISU has consistently stalled, even as a global pandemic emerged and endangered already endangered GTAs. A major example, ISU took over a year to respond to our initial offer. Over these 14 months, we have repeatedly tried to explain the dire situation many GTAs are in. Due to the low stipends, many GTAs experience economic insecurity, which leads to insecurities in other areas like housing, food, and healthcare, as you just heard. Some GTAs receive no pay at the end of the month after student fees are deducted. Others accrue substantial debt, losing money from coming to work at ISU. In the face of this urgent need, ISU offers small raises in accordance with state minimum wage law that will only affect a small percentage of our members and do little to ease the everyday danger our GTAs experience. In fact, we believe ISU wants us to negotiate against ourselves, which we have no interest in. As a result, we have nothing further for ISU at this time, and we believe that it is fruitless to meet further until we have a mediator present. The insecurity and danger our members experience is too urgent an issue to waste time with ISU's non-offers. We are not going to willingly continue to put ourselves in this position when ISU has disrespected us time and time again. We are not refusing to negotiate, rather refusing to pretend that ISU is negotiating with us. If ISU has something to offer us that actually addresses the severe crises TAs face, that ISU creates with low stipends, poor benefits, and high fees, we are ready and willing to hear it. But until that time, we have nothing for ISU except the notice that we request that the Labor Board impose mediation at this time. Yesterday, a delegation of the unionized grads served the mediation paperwork on Labor and Employee Relations Director Mike Kruger, the university's chief negotiator. To the Board of Trustees, as you meet today to consider yet another bonus for ISU's president, which is based on the value that he brings to the university, we ask that you also consider the value that GTAs bring to this institution. We ask you to recognize that we deserve at least a living wage. And finally, we ask that you advocate for us to ISU's negotiating team and encourage them to stop stalling and to negotiate with us in a respectful manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next, we have Trevor Rickard. Trevor, please proceed with your comments.
Thank you. My name is Trevor Rickard. I'm a PhD candidate and a teaching assistant in the School of Biological Sciences and a member of the ISU Graduate Workers Union. I am here today to announce that due to the stalling and the non-offers on the behalf of the university's negotiating team, the union has formally requested mediation through the Illinois Educational Labor Relations Board. Teaching assistants at ISU voted to form a union in October of 2018 with a margin of 80% of the votes going for the union. And it took the university an entire year just to sit down at the bargaining table with us on October 31st, 2019. Even then, after we put forth our economic proposals, it took the university an entire 12 months, a full year, to respond with economic proposals, which are as such: no reductions in mandatory fees for graduate workers, no improvements to healthcare anyway at all, and that the university would keep the minimum pay rate for graduate workers just about at the state's minimum wage, a wage rate that the university had already announced regardless of our negotiations. It's not negotiating. This is wrapping up the status quo in contract language as if it is something new and improved, when in fact, they are not improvements at all and are instead attempts to undermine our negotiations. We are no longer putting ourselves in a situation where we allow the university to push us into bargaining against ourselves. The university's lead negotiator, Mike Kruger, has stated that any increase in economic conditions for graduate workers would result in a subsequent raise in fee rates or tuition rates. And we know that this is a ridiculous argument. There seemed to be no issue with giving a $50,000 raise to the president of the university, who soon afterwards announced that he would be leaving the university, or giving a $150,000 raise to the basketball coach between 2017 and 2019. The university seemed to be doing fine with the over $160 million that it gained from the Redbird Rising campaign. We're now going to act like the TAs can't earn a wage that would allow them to pay rent and buy food comfortably. Somehow the university has no issue with finding creative ways to come up with money for rich administrators, but has a hard time figuring out how to help some of their lowest paid workers on campus. We demand an increase to our pay, a reduction or waiver in mandatory fees, and an increase to our healthcare to include dental and vision coverage. Other schools in the state of Illinois have done this for their graduate workers. Even ISU gives fee waivers for other classifications of employees when they take classes at ISU. We know that ISU is able to help graduate workers make the right decision and help give us a contract that makes substantial economic improvements for teaching assistants at ISU. The working conditions for TAs are the learning conditions for students, and the university works because we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.